UFC Fight Night Figueredo versus Zhang is coming up next weekend, and today, guys, I have the pretty well full card breakdown. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but regardless, with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels. Guys, we have a very important quick note for this before we actually break down the full card. Now, unfortunately for this card, it's going to be a little bit different because, of course, we have a few people from the road to UFC. We have the tournament championship, and on this card, there are a few fighters over from the Asian talent that I have not been personally following, and I tried throughout the week to start doing a little bit of tape study. If you guys know, typically I don't really need to do a lot of tape study because I keep up with a lot outside the UFC. If there's ever a fighter here and there, which happens, then I would do a little bit of tape study before making these videos. But unfortunately, for these people coming from things like the road to the UFC, I am not nearly as educated on these fighters as I typically am when it comes to this. So I always want to be honest with you guys. So I don't feel like I would make for a good breakdown for a couple of these fights. So I'm going to stick with the fights outside of the tournament this time around. And I'm sorry if honestly that disappoints you for a regular viewer. I just always want to be open and honest with you guys. I would imagine that you guys would rather hear me talk about fights that I am very knowledgeable about. I need to spend more time watching these fighters over in the Asian side. And again, typically I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to people coming into the UFC, but for this reason, I'm going to skip it just this time around. But again, timestamps are there. If you'd like to skip any part of the video, guys, we're going to be talking about all of those other fights with betting odds behind it. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening to the intro. Let's get into it. Starting off with the first bout, another thing I forgot to mention, I'm trying out this new setup that I have going on here. I'd love to know what you guys think about it down below in the comments because I use this on some other channels of mine. But regardless, we have Maheshate Hayisaer taking on Nikolas Motta. Hayisaer is a well-rounded fighter, does a good job with technical striking, and he has grappling to back it up. The only big problem that he has is he doesn't move his head. He definitely needs to be working on his head movement because his head is there to be hit. If you have nice straight shots, even just counters, you can catch the guy. But regardless, he is a well-rounded fighter in general. Nikolas Motta, on the other hand, is a striker with really good movement, speed, a variety of attacks in his arsenal, and he has great takedown defense to keep things on the feet where he can excel. Nikolas Motta we've seen him for a little while now, and he's had his ups and downs. He's had the weird no contest with Trey Ogden, but he finally is back in the win column against Tom Nolan, which was a shocking upset for a lot of people. Maheshate's a little bit in the same boat, so it's a really good matchup, to be honest with you guys. After having 2 losses in the UFC, he ended up getting a nice split decision win. Could have been better, but regardless, it's a very important fight for both guys. I think that Nikolas Motta might have a better time using counters in this fight. I think that there's times where, like I said, the problem with Maheshate is he needs to move his head more, in my opinion, and I think that his head will be here for Nikolas Motta to just not necessarily piece up. I don't think he's going to coast his way to a victory, but I do like Nikolas Motta in this specific matchup. I am going to pick him to be getting the win here, and I'd like to see him win too. I don't really have too much of a personal investment into this fight. Let's take a look at what the odds are right now, and okay, Nikolas Motta is the underdog. Interesting. Okay. I don't know if that's worth really betting on. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that one, because that's interesting. I didn't expect Nikolas Motta to be the underdog. I didn't think that would be an underdog pick of mine. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card to a fighter that I actually have been paying attention to over from the road to the UFC. We have Nyamjargal, Tumendemberel taking on Carlos Hernandez. Okay, it's a little bit difficult to break down this one because you have Mr. Art of Knockout, who is a very, very dangerous fighter with really good knockout power, and he does have submissions to back up his game, but regardless, he hasn't had a fight actually in the UFC yet, but he has had a variety of finishes throughout his career. He's looked really, really good. The technique's all there. The power's there. He appears to be the real deal, but he lacks that UFC experience, and Carlos Hernandez is going to be that UFC experience test. He is a striker with a lot of experience for his short pro career so far. He's a striker with a ton of technique, a nice jab, good side-to-side movement. He has really good cardio. What I do like about Carlos Hernandez, and I've always thought that he is a very underrated fighter. I know I've gotten a couple comments about gassing him up earlier, but I think that I really do believe he's underrated. He is incredibly elusive in his striking too. When he's on, he seems to be 2 steps ahead of his opponents. He has great counters with incredible precision. He uses his elusiveness to put the pressure on his opponents, and that kind of makes him he does it in a weird way, and I never know how to describe it because he uses his elusiveness to make sure that he ends up being the aggressor in the fight, without actually just moving forward and being the aggressor. I don't know if that makes a ton of sense, but regardless, For the ground game, he does have an improving ground game. His defense is good and his scrambles are good as well, but his submission defense is really, really where he shines in my opinion. So, Carlos Hernandez, as much as I just gassed him up, he hasn't been able to put a win together recently, and honestly, I still think that he's had good performances. Like in this last fight against Ray Tsuruya, he had a good performance even though he did end up losing. I'm still high on this guy. I still believe in him. I think that Carlos Hernandez is a very, very good fighter who unfortunately hasn't been able to put it together as of recently. I don't think, the way that I see him losing this fight is if Tumendemberel ends up catching him with a huge power, but I don't think that he'll actually be able to knock out Carlos Hernandez, but the guy seems to be a very good finisher, so that's a little bit of an issue when breaking down this fight. I'm not confident in this pick, but I am going to pick Carlos Hernandez to get the win. I think he's a better fighter. I think he has more tools in his arsenal, toolkit I almost said, in order to get the job done. And what's stopping me is like, you know what, he could get finished here, but I don't think he's going to get finished. That's the issue. Low confidence pick, but I am going to pick Carlos Hernandez to get the win. I hope that he gets the win because, again, I think that he's a pleasure to watch, and I think that he's a very, very underrated fighter. Let's take a look at Oezdemir over here, and you can see that it is almost a pick'em, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. I kind of get that. Tumendemberel seems like he is the real deal, but Carlos Hernandez is also a good fighter in himself. Very interested to watch this fight, guys. Before we continue on, guys, of course, as you know, we talk a lot about betting on this channel. If you're interested in seeing exactly where I'm putting my money, where my mouth is, either that or supporting the channel, you can check out the channel membership in the pinned comment description down below or right next to the subscribe button. It is extremely cheap. Every single Thursday or Friday, I will be posting a community post and a members only video with what I am exactly doing with my money. If you guys are interested, again, in either supporting the channel or taking a look at exactly what I'm doing with my money. Again, the channel membership will be for you. Also, the tool Oezdemir that we are using is a sponsor of the channel. If you guys are interested in signing up to Oezdemir, I love using Oezdemir. You can check that out in the pinned comment description down below as well. Very quick to all of the odds. Great if you have multiple sports books. You can get a discount by using my link and code Clenbat. Thank you for listening, guys. Let's move on to the main card, probably the quickest we've ever done. All right, guys, let's continue on over to the next bout. We have Volkan No Time Oezdemir taking on Carlos Ulberg. Finally get to see Carlos Ulberg back in there. I always forget that Carlos Ulberg is past 30. Like, I know he looks like he's around 30. I forget that he's exiting his prime, okay? Volkan Oezdemir. Actually, to be honest with you, both guys here, there's not a ton to break down. Yeah, Volkan Oezdemir is a good kickboxer who has improved grappling. Not useless, but not great anywhere. Like, Carlos Ulberg is a striker with massive power and good technique behind all of his shots. Not a ton to break down with both of those fighters, okay? Volkan Oezdemir, though, if you guys have been following the channel, you would know that I am a fan of No Time. I'm always cheering for his success, and it's been really, really nice to see him get two really nice wins in his career. And he has taken on, I know he's 20-7, but he has taken on some really high-level opponents, okay? Like in the Bogdan fight, he looked spectacular. He was accurate, powerful, mixed in the takedowns very nicely. He had a completely domination performance in there. Johnny Walker, he pressured Walker right away through nice combinations and got the knockout. Like, I think that he's still, like, in there. He still has potential in the division to perform well. My problem is, Carlos Ulberg just seems like he's that guy that will make it through the division. I know there's still some questions that we need answered about Carlos Ulberg, but I imagine that it's going to be a striking match, and I imagine that Carlos Ulberg is going to land that power shot and just flatline Volkan Oezdemir. I think that's what's most likely going to happen. He's just a big, massive force in there, and Volkan isn't necessarily that. But we have seen Volkan, again, with his improved grappling. What if he utilizes that against Carlos Ulberg? He might, and he might have success there, but we still have questions about Carlos Ulberg in that department, right? I am going to pick Carlos Ulberg to get the win. I think what's most likely to happen is Ulberg is going to catch Volkan Oezdemir, and I really hope that doesn't happen, but my pick is going to be Carlos Ulberg to get the win. Like I said, I've been following Volkan Oezdemir for a long time. I've been cheering for him. I think he's a very low-key and underappreciated fighter for his long-time rankings in the light heavyweight division. I hope that he gets the win. I hope the best for him, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. Carlos Ulberg is sitting at the average odds of -261 favorite. Honestly, makes sense to me. I think that he's going to win the fight. I would imagine that a lot of you think the same way as well. All right, guys, let's continue on over to the next fight. We have Cong Wang taking on Gabriella Fernandes. Cong Wang, who I have been doubting and has done nothing but prove me wrong so far. We have Cong Wang, who's a boxer and kickboxer with good combinations and speed. She has good boxing in the clinch, and she does seem to be very strong in those scenarios. She's taking on Gabriella Hernandez, who has had a little bit of a rough go as of lately. I've been watching her for a long time, and she's had some tough fights, man. She's a powerful striker with some submissions behind it. She can be taken down, and her momentum can kind of be used against her when she's on the aggression. She's very, very strong for the division. She can outmuscle opponents, but again, her weakness is pushing that pace, using her power, and having it used against her, okay? Now, Gabriella Fernandes has had a rough go, like I just said. She took on Jasmine Jastovicius and then Teresa Bleda, who seems to be a nice prospect in herself, but then she ended a good performance against Carly Judas, and I thought it was a pretty good scrap, to be honest with you. So I still do think that Gabriella Fernandes, I think I keep saying Hernandez. What's wrong with me today? I think she has some promise, but I am on the Cong Wang train now, unfortunately. She seems to be the real deal. She's 6-0, and that's what I was questioning about. Like, she didn't have that UFC experience. She didn't. But then she came in, and I know that Victoria Leonardo isn't a good opponent to really finish either, but she just got a knockout. I would imagine she's going to do the same thing. My pick's going to be Cong Wang. I'm on the train. I'm a believer. I said I need to see a UFC win, and she got a UFC win. And you can see over on Odds Jam, Gabriella Fernandes is sitting at a heavy underdog. Cong Wang at a minus 525 favorite. I will still say I don't like that heavy of a favorite because I still haven't seen her take on anybody good. Gabriella Fernandes is the next step up. Gabriella Fernandes is kind of like that transition between like bad and okay. Like she's like the next step up. You know what I mean? She's not necessarily good, but she's getting there. Now, guys, let's continue on up the card. We have Kenan Song taking on Muslim Salikhov. I always feel bad for these guys because they have had such a rough resume and not a ton of people necessarily talk about them. Like, look at like Muslim Salikhov, all these opponents that he's taking on. Look at these. Look at these. All of them but one is a fantastic fighter. And Kenan Song, more of the same, a little bit up more on the weaker side, but still had some really, really good performances and some really, really tough fights. So I always like to cheer for these guys when they're fighting. But anyways, Kenan Song, he's a good kickboxer with great, like, thudding power in his shots. He has nasty leg kicks. He's a very, very tough guy. He does have good takedown defense to stay on the feet, and he's very sneaky and good when in the clinch. He also, in the clinch, has really good nasty elbows, knees. His only issue is at times he can be low volume, especially at the beginning, and he's also pretty hittable. He has no problem throwing himself into the fire. If he hurts somebody, he will jump in. He also keeps his hands down too much. So the 22-8 record kind of speaks for itself. He's a good, tough fighter. He has good technique, but he does have his weaknesses. Muslim Salikhov, on the other hand, he's 40 years old at this point, and his age is showing. He's a good striker, a good wrestler who tries to get knockouts every single time that he fights. Not a ton of breakdown compared to Kenan Song, but like I said, Muslim Salikhov, his age has been showing big time, and this fight, I don't remember how many people feel about it, but I will say this was an absolute robbery. Absolute robbery. Santiago Ponzinibbio won that. In saying that, though, neither fighter really looked good. I don't think that Muslim Salikhov necessarily, and I know that he's been through the ringer of opponents, but he's looked slower now. I have been less impressed with him. Unfortunately, I don't think that he has it anymore, and Kenan Song is still a very, very strong fighter in the division. Like against Ricky Glenn here, he had a fantastic performance. He dominated him for 3 rounds. Like, I was very, very impressed with what I've seen from Kenan Song in that fight. He's still got it. He's still a super tough fighter. He almost finished Ian Gary as well. You can't remember that. Like, I'm very confident that Kenan Song will get the job done here. Muslim Salikhov, like I said, he's a very underappreciated fighter, but I think his time has passed him, and Kenan Song will get the better of him no matter where the fight goes. Let's take a look at the odds jam, and you can see Kenan Song sitting at the underdog. Wow, that's something that I'm probably going to hit. Am I crazy? I'm very confident in that fight. Comment down below what you think, guys. Now, guys, let's continue on over to the next fight. We have Ozzy Diaz taking on Minyang Zhang. Ozzy Diaz coming over from the LFA. I've been watching this guy for a little bit. He's 9-2. He is a very, very powerful striker who manages distance. He manages distance okay, but he's always looking for a finish, whether on the feet or on the ground. This guy comes in and he really, really wants to finish you. Minyang Zhang, on the other hand, is a well-rounded fighter who excels at striking with good aggression. He has good power. He's also good on the ground, and he does possess the ability to club and sub his opponents. The only issue with Minyang Zhang, and it hasn't been an issue recently, but he can get caught up in a war. Minyang Zhang finally coming into the UFC and getting a crazy knockout against Brendan Ribeiro. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they slugged it out, and he got a knockout, but to be fair, anything could have happened there, and that's what I worry about Minyang Zhang. So, honestly, guys, I think that this one is a little bit closer to a pick'em, in my opinion. A little bit closer because you have two guys that just try to finish each other. I could see Zhang offering up a war. Ozzy Diaz kind of accepting it. I see this fight just being a quick slugfest, to be honest with you. I'm going to ever so slightly lean to the Mountain Tiger. I think that Minyang Zhang, I think that he has, I don't know, man. I was going to say he has the more options, but not really. Like, Ozzy Diaz is a finisher on the ground as well. Like, I don't know. A little bit more of a gut feeling. I think it's a close fight, but I am going to give it to Minyang Zhang. Also, on a little bit more of a roll. He's had that UFC experience. Ozzy Diaz, he's a good fighter in himself. Past his prime now. Minyang Zhang still improving. Hasn't even reached his prime yet. I'm going to pick him to win this fight. Low confidence pick, but I am going to pick Minyang Zhang to win the fight. Let's take a look at what the odds are at. Okay, and Minyang Zhang is a pretty heavy favorite. There you go. Minyang Zhang minus 324 favorite. Maybe it's a little steep, but maybe I'm also just crazy. It's a weird card for me to break down, guys. Weird card for me to break down. Let me know what you think about this one as well in the comments. And before we move on to the co-main and the main event, guys, of course, I am your guy with too many YouTube channels over here. We don't just have MMA videos. We have lots of channels, whether you're interested in movies and TV, whether you're interested in gaming, reaction content, self-improvement content. We have many channels that you can find in the description down below, as well as the YouTube homepage. I would love to have you over in any other form of content. Thank you so much for being, guys. I plan on having my toes wet in every single niche. It's going to be big. I'm excited. Sorry if you could just hear my notification. But in saying that, guys, let's move on over to the co-main event. We have Xiaonan coming back after that war with Weili, taking on Tabatha Ricci. I'm actually very excited for this fight. Very excited because, man, that was so much fun to watch. Like, she's always been fun to watch for the 115 division, but man, that Weili Zhang fight was crazy. Like, getting knocked out twice. Was it twice or 3 times in a fight? Regardless, doesn't matter. Xiaonan is a fighter that has a ton of heart. She has good power. She's a very good striker. And honestly, she's a well-rounded fighter, but she is the top of the division besides Weili, in my opinion. Very good fighter. Tabatha Ricci, on the other hand, is a great fighter who is always about position over submission. She takes her time, tries to take you down, grinds you out into a submission. What's interesting is, and I've been saying this since her fight with Tecia Torres, or Tecia Pennington, excuse me, because this fight was an absolute robbery. The way to beat her has officially been showed by Tecia Torres. The way to beat her is just to look at her when she closes and just swing. Swing, and then that's how you make her wilt. And honestly, when thinking about this matchup, I think that Xiaonan will not just be able to swing, but I think that she'll be able to find the chin of Tabatha Ricci. More of like technical swinging, not like Tecia Torres does, where it's just like something like that, you know? And sorry, I just realized I forgot my dog was sleeping. I didn't want to make any big movements over there. Well, Xiaonan has the technique and power to clip Tabatha Ricci. I'm not so sure that she'll find a knockout, but I don't think that she'll find the takedowns on Xiaonan, and I think that Yan's going to be faster. She's going to be a better striker, and I think that she's going to have a clear victory in this fight. I think she has a good matchup, or she's a good matchup to beat Tabatha Ricci. I got Xiaonan. I'm going to pick her to win, and unless she took some crazy damage against Weili, which, honestly, something to take into consideration, I'm confident that she'll get the job done. I'm picking Xiaonan to get the win, and what's interesting is, for some reason, at the time of recording this video, which is the Wednesday before it is uploaded, there are no odds on this fight. Don't know why, but they're not out yet. All right, guys, let's move on to the main event. The main event that is going to break my heart. I am a big fan of both of these fighters. Petr Yan taking on Deiveson Figueredo. This is one of those fights that means so much to both of their careers, with two great guys, two really respected and high-level martial artists. It's one of those fights that it is a shame that somebody has to lose this fight. We all know and love these guys. Petr Yan, a very complete fighter who excels at boxing. Literally everything that he does, whether it's wrestling, BJJ, whether it's kickboxing, he has near perfect technique to everything that he does. He is one of the most fun fighters to watch in, like, technical wise, in my opinion. It's like I felt about TJ Dillashaw. I love watching this guy, and it's just a pleasure to watch his technique in the octagon. Deiveson Figueredo, on the other hand, is also a very complete fighter who excels at a fast-paced, chaotic fight where he looks to just knock you clean right out. He has good fight IQ, does a good job adjusting his game plans in the middle of a fight if needed. The only issue is Deiveson Figueredo is now 37 years old in the bantamweight division. His age has not really shown yet, but since he moved up to 135, because of course we all know that he fought in the flyweight division for a long time, he's lacked that danger aspect that he's carried throughout his entire career. Deiveson Figueredo, you don't see him walk forward and you're like, oh my god, he's about to kill you. That's how you really felt in a Deiveson Figueredo fight. He lacks that at 135, and I think that's a big issue. He's had great success so far since he moved up. Great success, beating Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, Chito Vera, and I was surprised by, I don't remember who I picked in this fight, but I was surprised by like how clean the Marlon Vera win was, to be honest with you. Petr Yan, extremely unlucky throughout his career. Of course, you have the Aljamain Sterling fight. I always forget how inactive Petr Yan is. You have the Aljamain Sterling decision. You have the Sean O'Malley robbery. You have the Merab unfortunate beatdown. And then you have the fantastic performance that was with Song Yadong. And beating Song Yadong is great. I think it's great. It was a very, very close fight. Thought Yan won the fight, but honestly, fight could have gone either way, but it was just a fight where both guys dug deep and showed incredible technique. The fight was everywhere, and it was just so high level. Just like this fight right now. It is so high level. In saying that, I'm very confident that Petr Yan will get the job done. I don't think that Figueredo can take him down the way that Merab and Sterling took down Petr Yan, and even then, like, Petr Yan makes it a big issue for you. Petr Yan's still in his prime. Figueredo, it's tough to beat 37 and in the bantamweight division. I almost want Deiveson to win. I just don't see him winning. I think Yan's a better boxer. I think Yan will be able to defend any grappling attempts that Figueredo will bring forward. And I think it's a 5-round fight too. Yan will excel. I'm confident that Yan will get the job done. Like, no matter where the fight goes, Yan will do better. I think it's going to be a good fight, but I think it's just going to be one of those where it's like, Yan clearly wins most of the exchanges. I'm picking Petr Yan. I love both guys. I almost want to cheer for Deiveson Figueredo a little bit more. I just do. I would love to see him get another title. That'd be really, really fun. Regardless, it's going to break my heart. I'm going to hate watching this fight, but love it at the same time because the techniques seem to be beautiful. Can't wait for this fight. Let's take a look at Odds Jam. And you can see Petr Yan is sitting at a minus 247 average odds favorite. Understandable. Like the odds are saying, I'm very confident Petr Yan will get the job done. He's slipped up before. I don't think that he's going to slip up this time. It's going to break my heart. I don't want to see Viggy lose, but I think that he is unfortunately going to lose. And I apologize again, guys, if you're here for me to break down literally every fight. It's just one of those cards where I need to educate myself more on those fighters, to be honest with you. So I hope you guys understand. Comment down below. And typically, if you're new to this channel, like, this doesn't happen. I don't think I've ever had a card where I did that before. Regardless, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching. Check out this video on screen right now if you want to continue watching the channel. YouTube thinks you'll like this video the best. Take care, everybody.